In Omkara?
I think
in
so.
Omkara I had to keep saying "ekhe" or something like
that.
that.
Yeah.
Hansi badi mehengi ho rakhi hai or something like that I was saying, yeah. 7 sex positions and all 7 were jotted down that this. We rehearsed it with the actors. In fact, Amrita was very clear that she said, let's just practice it beforehand. We practiced it in my bedroom. We took pictures on the DOP's phone to show them what the camera angle will be, because it doesn't matter what nudity or what you're showing. It depends on the light and the angle.
Yeah.
And then we showed it to them, got their okay, and deleted it in front of them, which was a bit of an intense kind of a scene. And I had just, I think, chewed some gum before. So my mouth was well lubricated. My mouth was full of saliva. But your mouth isn't when you're tense. I've only read excerpts. I'm ashamed to say, but I will. I will now read all of them, of course.
Yeah, the next time I interview you, I'm going to...
Oh my God, you're going to quiz me. What fun. Okay.
Apart from being a very successful director, your mother has also been a very successful actor. You know, in fact, she's acted in a movie with Amitabh Bachchan and Shashi Kapoor, right? Iman Dharam and all that. What was something that she told you about acting that has stood you in good stead?
I don't know that there is any one particular overarching thing that she said.
A bunch
but
of
there
things
are,
maybe?
yeah. You know, there's been a lot of practical kind of advice. She was also coming from, you know, she's been the most particular director I've worked with, which is great training in itself to work with her. Because she not only helps me to prep for the role from a psychological point of view, so to speak, to approach the character, but she's also very particular about how I'm looking, what the frame is looking like. So she is the director who might say, no, I don't want you to turn beyond this, you know, so only with this much you have to do. Sometimes it would be like, Ari, but, you know, but what training? That's great, because when I watch the films, I'm very grateful for it, ultimately, because not all directors are looking out for that, you know, and sometimes it may not be necessary, depends on the kind of film you're doing. You know, I remember my first film where she was the most helpful, actually, because the first film I did was a Bengali film called Ek Jaiche Konna, which I did between my second and third year of college. And it was a very popular film by a lovely man called Shubhrata Sen. But it was a very mainstream kind of a, maybe a bit of a pot boiler. It was that kind of a film. And I was such a snob in college studying English literature. And, you know, I was just like, oh my God, this is so silly what I'm doing. It's just so silly. And, you know, it was about a psychotic teenager who's obsessed with an older man. And I was just terribly embarrassed by the whole thing. Because, you know, here I was doing seminars on the theatre with the absurd and things like that. You know, when you're 18, 19, you're also taking yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know, please, what am I doing? Even though everybody was lovely and the film did very well. And I went on to win lots of awards and, you know, all of that. But I was most unhappy, and I was not very sympathetic towards my character. I was constantly judging my character. I was like, why is she behaving like this? You know, means why do I have to do this, you know? Why does she have no self-respect and dignity and things like that? And I remember the one thing that my mom said, which I remember all these years and really helped me, and I sometimes have also shared it with other actors, is that she had said something along the lines of, have a little more compassion for her. You know, she's very young. She has no other weapons in her arsenal. And this is what she thinks, you know, will work, the character. So that had really helped to approach your character without judgment and to find something of yourself in the character that you're portraying, because I really believe that everything is already within us, you know. Every emotion that you can think of is already there. And for certain characters, you just channel certain elements, you know, depending on what the story demands. You bring on, for example, like, you know, we've all gone through love and loss and betrayal and all kinds of things, but, or we get angry differently for different things.
Yeah.
Right? But, so the external cause may be different between me and the character, but you're still feeling a similar emotion. So, you know, to connect in that, because when, you know, it's that weird balance of, you're not yourself for every character, but you're really bringing out different aspects of yourself, you know, because obviously it's a film and it's only whatever, 120 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you let your little bit of your soul leak out through this character, that sometimes can be very magical.
You know, I'm a sucker for phrases, and soul leaking out is so doing it for me.
I know it's giving me also lots of fun.
Yeah, because you know, I
Bleeding
think
into the character.
You know, no, because I think I think Bergman said this, and he said
One of my favorite directors ever.
Bergman, right?
Yeah.
So he says, I've seen the insides of the soul and it's red. Something like that. I'm not saying the correct quote well. You can Google it up. But I've seen the insides of the soul and it's red. And I read that quote and I was like, oh my God, this is just like doing it for me. You know, it's just like
and his Magic Lantern is so good.
Oh my God. Yeah.
His
And
memoir.
Sawdust and Tinsel and all these.
You know, Bergman, the greatest training that my mom gave me, I think, is that when we were young, we were not allowed to watch mainstream Hindi or Bengali films for that matter. And there was she had a great VHS collection with a lot of regional cinema. But even more than that, I would say there was world cinema.
Yeah.
So we would watch every day. Like, I think some films, like of Truffaut, Bergman, and even Hitchcock and others, like they would play every day at home.
Because your grandfather was a critic, did you pick up something from him?
You know, I have to say, I still find some of his texts so dense. And I haven't actually been able to read.
I've only read him in English. Did he write in Bengali?
In English. So
he wrote in English.
He wrote in Bengali also, but he mainly, I think, wrote in English, but he wrote in Bengali also. That too, there's
so
no way I
seeing is
can penetrate.
believing and all is
English.
Is English. Okay.
And Painted Face, all of that is English.
Yeah.
And even his book on rays, that's English as far as I know.
Right. So you've picked up something?
I've only read excerpts. I'm ashamed to say, but I will. I will now read all of them, of course.
Yeah, the next time I interview you, I'm going to...
Oh my God, you're going to quiz me.
Yes.
What fun. Okay. Yeah.
But, you know, when you approach a character and everything is this, like, for example, did you find something different in the way you approached the character in Life in a Metro versus Metro in Dino? Because time has passed. I think, you know, the way... What was Konkona then when she approached Shruti, the character, and this time I got the name right, versus...
You know, I've now worked on almost 60 films because I've been working for 2 decades or more. And I found that, you know, different directors are different. So I feel like I would like to think and I would like to be flexible generally in life. I don't believe in rigidity. But also that I think you have to kind of tune into your director and how they are and how they are working. So there are some directors who believe in a lot of prep and you know that really helps. It also depends a lot on the kind of character you're playing. Because if you're playing somebody who's very removed from you socially, economically, culturally, then you need a little more prep, obviously. But if you're playing someone like a Shruti or, you know, sometimes one plays characters like Aisha and Wake Up Sid, or like there are some characters who are closer. So you don't always need a lot of prep for that. You needn't. You can, I'm sure, and discover new things. Like Rituparna Ghosh barely did any prep.
No.
Hardly, I don't even remember, like maybe like, you know.
But he does stuff, intense stuff.
At least with me. Maybe with others. I have worked on 3, I think, films with him. And for Titli and for Doshra, we didn't do any prep. And in fact, it was just in fact, a lot like working with Anurag, which is why I always say with Anurag, it's a homecoming. Because, you know, we're just on location, we're all chilling, chatting, eating, you know, doing other things, and kaam bhi ho rahe. You know, kab ho gaya, you don't even know.
You don't have to be in the zone or anything like that.
No.
Like,
I mean, sometimes, you know, it depends. Like, if I have to sometimes hold on to a particular emotion, which is like a heightened emotion, then I may want to hold on to it between take 1, take 2, between takes. Between takes, you may need to hold on because, you know, you may go again in half a minute. So, and there's a lot of, you know, chaos around you. So you may need to hold on a little bit. So sometimes I do that. So it depends. So with Anurag, you were saying for Life in a Metro and Metro in Dino, it was Anurag, you know, so he was the same.
Yeah.
He's the same, I'm the same. It's like 20 years didn't pass. I don't really believe in time all the time. So, you know, it's a bit elastic.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so in that sense, it didn't feel very different at all. It felt very much the same. It was similar conversations, it was a similar kind of a vibe. It felt equally comfortable. I just missed Irfan.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is also the way you approached a character then, that is Life in a Metro, versus the way you approached this character. Has there been a change?
No, because the director's the same.
Okay, so
and
that's
his
why you're
approach
saying...
is the same.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
but
it could be like, so I would say it doesn't, you know, it was not about really the time, I think. It's just more about the director. And my approach to the character would be the director and what they kind of set forth to a certain extent. And the other determining factor would be how removed the character is from me.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
then I would need to, and I actually do like to read the script a few times, even on my own, even if the director doesn't want me to, or if there are long Hindi lines, then usually I'm prepping for that, just learning the line. I never plan a performance. You can never plot a performance. And even after a take, if some, that thing you did, or can we do this, I find it very hard. I can't remember what I just did because it has happened in that moment. I can try to recreate it, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I can't even plan what I'm going to do. I mean, like my mom, she used to always say I'm very inarticulate, so I'll show you. So she would show me. And
She would perform and show you.
She'll actually perform as in not full on, but just give me a sense of it,
Right.
which I find very useful because it's not like it'll ever be the same on me. So, but when she does it, I'm like, oh, you mean bring a shade of humiliation to it. Which it's harder, and especially when you're shooting in a rush and stuff, it's harder sometimes to, exactly articulate. Sometimes between my mother and me, at least it's quite easy to see, just do it with a little more flair. And I know she may not say the word flair, but it's the way she does it that I can understand, oh, you want a little bigger or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'll do it in my way.
You mentioned that, some roles like Shruti in Life in a Metro or Wake Up Sid, Aisha, they were closer to you. When you say roles that were farthest from you, what would they be?
Mrs. Iyer first. Because not only was she extremely prejudiced and bigoted at the beginning of the film, and she was also speaking in a way that was just very unfamiliar to me. So my mom and I my mother would constantly talk to me in a Thai accent at home. At home, outside, going out for dinner, shopping, whatever, she would just talk to me like this. And so what happened is initially I was a little embarrassed, a little reserved, so wo cut gaya. That really helped. Mrs. Iyer was very removed from me. Indu from Omkara was very different from me. They were also both mothers at a time where I was very far away from having children.
Yeah. I think your first line was Chal Golu.
In Omkara?
I think
in
so.
Omkara I had to keep saying, ekhe, or something like
that.
that.
Yeah.
Hasi badi mehengi ho rakhi, or something like that I was saying, yeah. But only that I remember, nothing else. These two characters are definitely very removed from me. I can't
What about when you're playing a schizophrenic in...
Oh my God, I want to tell you about that. But I also want to say, like, for example, in Goinar Baksho also, a very underconfident and slightly subservient quality that character had in her in the beginning, Shomlata, and with a stutter. That was also quite different for me. And just now, you
the schizophrenic in 15 Park Avenue.
That was... Like for me, I'm proudest of that. That is what is closest to me. Otherwise, I don't feel like I am like any of the characters I've ever essayed. If anything, like I feel my persona comes out for the films I've directed, like A Death in the Gunja, I'll feel like, yes, that's more me. Not any of the films I've acted in. But in 15 Park Avenue, because there is someone in my family who has schizophrenia. So I have seen it since I was a child, at least this manifestation of it, because it presents in different ways. So no two cases are exactly alike. But it was something that I had seen very closely. It's a world or whatever. I mean, I'm very familiar with that, So that was completely internalized. And in that, my mother did no prep. She just let me be. She said, just you do what you want.
Right.
And I found that, and another thing my mother had told me or asked me in the beginning that really helped me sometimes to approach a character from outside in. Like I remember in Mrs. Iyer also, when I wore that yellow sari and I took that handbag and the diaper bag and the baby and the, all my jewelry and the thali and the nalli or whatever it was. And then I felt like Mrs. Iyer, Meenakshi Iyer. And even in 15 Park Avenue, when I was playing Mithi, I felt what I would keep doing is putting my sleeves down. So it gave me a certain vulnerability. And I let my lips become very chapped and dry. So it somewhere it helped me. And those things really matter. Like I remember a scene I was shooting in Killer Soup, which was a bit of an intense kind of a scene. And I had just, I think, chewed some gum before. So my mouth was well lubricated. My mouth was full of saliva. But your mouth isn't when you're tense or you're stressed. Your mouth is dry. So I wasn't being able to put my finger on what happened. Well, it's not coming. And then I made my mouth dry. And that really helped. How physicality helps, no?
Yeah. No, I was just suddenly had this memory because when you said that, don't be judgmental about your characters, I think age also helps because you were very young, right, when you did that? Because
I was 22 or something
when my favorite film of your mom's is, unsurprisingly, 36 Choringi Lane.
Oh!
So it's like,
I know it by heart. And
Yeah.
we're having a screening soon, I'll tell you.
So when I saw it when I was younger, obviously you're all sympathetic for Violet Stoneham because she's like the Jennifer Kendall character. Oh, this poor old spinster lady. This young couple came and used her, and like they did all this and all that because there's a very black and white way in which you are when you are younger. But when I saw it when I was older, I said that, see, listen, it's not using. It's like they needed something, she needed company. It was a kind of a mutual coming together of needs, I guess.
How you view a film reveals so much about you.
Yeah.
Which is why films which don't spoon feed you and don't tell you how to feel at every single point with the BGM or with
Yeah.
the shot taking,
Yeah.
those are great because you can have multiple viewings.
Right. So when I felt that, I was like, that's not the me I was when I was younger, because there I was clearly feeling like villain, poor victim. That's what it was. But now it's like, okay, they may have been a little self-centered or like looking
and you
after.
always have the option to watch it without judgment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do have that
Yeah,
option.
yeah.
It's just that we're not necessarily, that's not the default. It may not always come naturally.
Right, but you're right, because at that point, had there been too much of background music with solo violins and underscoring, the character or something like that, you would have very clearly felt for this person, as opposed to now being able to make up your mind about what
with
this
life
thing
experience.
is. Yeah,
Which is why also I feel like in Death in the Ganj, I wanted to keep two things open. I wanted to keep, a streak of something paranormal and a streak of something psychological, because which one you choose to go with actually reveals more about you,
Yeah, about the viewer.
the viewer.
Yeah. But what about something like The Mirror, when, where Lust Stories 2, your episode you're directing, probably one of the few times you've gotten into a very, obviously, lust story. So it's a very erotic zone. There's voyeurism, there's all kinds of things. How do you prepare actors for something like that?
When you have actors like how I was really so lucky to
Yeah.
get Tilottama, Amruta, Shrikant Yadav. I was very lucky to get those guys. And they all came on board with a certain amount of trust and faith. And of course, everything was detailed and down. Like the screenplay had every detail, every intimate scene was plotted.
Yeah.
Like we had 7 sex positions and all 7 were jotted down that this. We rehearsed it with the actors. In fact, Amrita was very clear that she said, let's just practice it beforehand. We practiced it in my bedroom. We took pictures on the DOP's phone to show them what the camera angle will be, because it doesn't matter what nudity or what you're showing. It depends on the light and the angle.
Yeah.
And then we showed it to them, got their okay, and deleted it in front of them. I feel it should be industry practice.
Yeah. This sounds like a thing. And I'll never forget the look on Amrita Subhash's face when she is making love and she sees Tilottama.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, is she having her orgasm because of what the man is doing to her, or is
because
she,
she's being
or
watched.
because she's being watched? I'm like, wow, that's a moment
And
I have never seen.
Really.
We've never seen that moment before in Indian cinema.
For that, actually, firstly, it's the first time we see her having an orgasm. Before that, we don't. And the camera placement, it's a very conscious decision because we have not entered the bedroom.
Yeah. You're from Tilottama's point of view.
It's always Tilottama's point of view.
Yeah.
Until Amrita knows, and it's like Amrita gives us permission. Amrita gives us permission to kind of watch her.
Yeah.
That's when the camera is in the room and we see her orgasm.
Yeah. That was amazing. Ray is a great example of how great women movies can be made by, women's stories can be told by men, and so on and so forth. Rituparna Ghosh. But for some reason with Mirror, I was like, maybe this movie could have only been made by a woman. I don't know why. I just felt that.
I was very aware that the majority of the viewers are from the economic class of Ishita's character, which is Tilottama.
Yeah.
So you're entering the film kind of through Tilottama, but hopefully you're exiting the film with like at least both, if not Seema.
Yeah. And that was kind of nice. Yeah. So, but coming back to Metro Indino, what was your takeaway from this character? I mean, do you take away things from a character when you...
You know what I loved? Yeah, I think you do sometimes, not always consciously. But what I loved about Metro Indino is that most of the time when we watch in Hindi films, or even otherwise, I think that we, like in a love story or something, we'll see the characters till they come together. So it's the very early part of romance, which is a very ephemeral thing. So it's till they come together, then once they've acknowledged their love for each other, it's like the
and they
story's
walked off
over.
into the sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
it's
then
like
what happens
the story's
later?
over.
Yeah.
Or we'll see the very early part of the marriage or the romance, you know. But what happens even if you have chosen the right person, which itself is so tricky, but even if you've chosen the right person, what happens after 10 years, you know, is that you know, you can have a certain monotony of monogamy can happen.
That's a tongue twister.
Yeah. So, and that I think that Anurag has addressed with so much humor and lightness. That
So
is
it's you and
it's
Pankaj Tripathi.
me and Pankaj. I'm, you know, so again, Pankaj and I have worked in the same industry for so long, but never come together before this. Like Manoj Bajpayee and I never come together before Killer Soup, and we are all existing doing similar kind of work. And so I was so happy to work with Pankaj. It was a delight.
Yeah, he's. So this
Crazy.
is about a couple that's been together for a while, and now they're seeing some kind of a 7-year.
Now there's a little bit of intu, as he calls it in the film. I mean, I guess there's a monotony and there's a bit of, you know, the inclination to have some variety or look around or, you know, be interested. You know, how do you maintain desire? It's a very important and interesting question. It's just dealt with in a nice, light-hearted way.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I'm, you know, sometimes it's good that films like these come out because the reactions to them reveal a lot about society. And without judgment, I just want to say it's so interesting that the things that trigger people, the things that people accept, it's so amazing because
Revelatory.
Sorry?
It is revelatory.
It is revelatory because Karan Johar told me this story. I may have repeated this earlier, but when he made Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna, it was about two couples that were actually very nice people, but they just weren't suited for each other. That is the Rani and Abhishek and Shah Rukh and Preeti. It's just that they weren't right for each other.
Yeah.
It's not that they were bad people.
Yeah.
But the movie was about them getting divorced and this and that and all that kind of stuff. So there was this lady who'd brought her daughter who had just been divorced to see a Karan Johar film, so that
This was not the one.
so that she'd forget her troubles for a while and enjoy this romance and this and that and all that. And I believe she shouted at Karan saying, "I brought my daughter because I want to have a fun time, and what is this movie you made?" And you know, I was like,
This is
I've
not
never forgotten
typical,
that. It is a very funny incident, actually.
Shona kal hona ho or something. I'm so vague on names.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I don't think.
Kuch hota hai.
Kuch hota hai. Yeah, but you know, you should say that again. You should have shown her.
Yeah, you should show na kuch hota hai.
Something like that, yeah. So, but thank you so much. It's
Thank
a
you.
pleasure, and you know, I can't wait to see what you're doing with Pankaj Tripathi
Yes,
in this
I'm
film.
very excited.
Yeah,
Thank you,
because,
Baradwaj.
you know,
It's such a pleasure to talk to you always.
Thanks again.